In Titus 2, older women are commanded to teach what is good so they can help younger women love their husbands and children. On today's show, you'll hear from older women who will share timeless, relevant biblical wisdom and personal, profound life experiences to help answer your questions and teach what God says is good so you can be the wife and mother you were created to be. Welcome to another episode of Older Women Likewise.
Hello, viewers, and welcome. Before I introduce the panel tonight, I wanted to remind you that tomorrow is the first Friday of the month. And so this is an opportunity that we have created every first Friday of every month on Older Women Likewise. We have and enjoy what we call First Friday fasting. And so it's a day of fasting and praying. We all do it in whatever ways, that fit our life the best. We all have different health conditions. We all have different parameters that may make that look a little bit different for each one of us. But each month we think of one thing that we're going to fast and pray over. And so tomorrow's fasting will be over a request to God that there be a solid turn toward God's nation preserving wisdom. And so feel free. One thing that we also do, I also think about this in my own day of prayer, is what other things are weighing me down. And so I use that day as I'm praying for that main thing about, just this turning towards God's wisdom in our nation. I use the time to cast all the other things that are weighing me down and weighing my heart and just concerns that I have that I've been writing down. So of course, needless to say, this one day fast is at your own risk, obviously, and you really need to do your own research and figure out for you, are you going to need some in order to not feel bad in any way? Are you going to need some enzymes? This is a great thing to take some potassium, a little bit of Himalayan salt, that kind of thing, to help it go a little bit better. And the main thing is that Ephesians 5:16 says the effective prayer of a righteous man can accomplish much. And so we at Older Women Likewise believe that with all of our hearts. So we hope that you will join us for these First Friday fasts. It's a different focus every month. And so Isla, would you bring on our wonderful panel tonight? We have Jill, we have Robin, and we have Colleen, the fabulous Three Musketeers tonight joining me. So we're talking about how to start growing. And so I'm so excited to hear what you all have. Jill, what can you tell us about what's going on in your life right now?
Oh, everything's wonderful. I'm so thankful to God for good health. I've been able to visit with my grandchildren and get out there and do what I need to do.
Yes. How about you, Robin? What's going on? You're back home, I think.
Oh. Sorry. Yes. Got back home after taking kids to camp and visiting with family. And so now I'm prepping for a ladies' retreat. And so, yeah, it's nice to get back home after each night we stayed someplace different.
Oh, I know how that feels.
To just be in my own bed for several days in a row.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you worked us into all that activity in the hotel room.
Yeah.
So that was great, last week's program. Yes, love that. And Colleen, you're also a mover and a shaker and a busy girl in the kingdom of heaven. What have you been up to?
Well, right now we're getting ready for the kids to start the new school year in their new Bible classes.
Gotcha.
So I'm the coordinator for the third grade, and we have so many kids,
really,
and a small room. And we got lots of stuff to do. We start out with 6 weeks of life in Bible times, so the kids can get an idea of what life was like and understand we teach New Testament this whole year.
Yes.
understand the way things were. So all that, you know, getting their notebooks done, and my daughter's going to come down and help me. It's a lot, but it's fun, and it's an exciting time of year.
That sounds exciting. New bulletin boards and all of that, I bet.
Yep.
That's cool. Well, what's been going here at this little 900 square foot beach house? 2 nights ago, we were a party of 14 in this one living room that you're looking at. So it was this fabulous family that we met from Oklahoma that came to see us. And then last night we did a Bible study at their place that they were renting to vacation on the Oregon coast. So it was wonderful to watch, to go on the beach and take a walk with these people from Oklahoma, because, you know, it's not like it was the first beach they've ever seen, but you see it through the fresh eyes and the excitement. And they had children with them, and it was just glorious. What beautiful people we've met all over the country this past 4 years that we've been living nomadically, and so that these people were a result of those travels. So that's what's going on at the Dunnigan house. And let's jump in now to our conversation here about how to start growing. So I wanted to think about first how God uses so many metaphors within his divine word to describe this concept of growth, right? These analogies often will start with something small that through God's providence and a lot of time and patience becomes surprisingly substantial. You think about the mustard seed, you know, you think about the building of that were a temple being built to the glory of God, or you think about this life cycle that 1 Peter 2:1-3 talks about, of this analogy of going from an infant to a child to a adult, you know. So our spiritual process is often this slow maturity toward all that we can be to the glory of God. So sometimes, though, there's like growing pains, right? Growing pains, sisters. So why is growth often painful? Robin, would you start us off tonight on this conversation? What does God say, or what are your thoughts about why growth is often painful?
You know, in a time, I wasn't raised in the church, and I came into it with a lot of misconceptions. I was in and out of many different religious organizations. Must be a slow learner, because it took me 10 years to find the truth. And I called that time period, and even the time period after, when I was in this intense phase of learning and shedding old, whether it's worldly ideas or just misrepresentation of truth. I came across this saying. I also was a science teacher, so, you know, I'm kind of a geeky that way. And I called that time period in my life the gift of the cocoon, because in a cocoon, that little larva, that little caterpillar, is first it's just turning to goo, except for its digestive parts, and it's kind of losing itself. And it's really hard to lose yourself because you don't really know who you are. And so there was a probably, I'm going to say 20-year time period of this for me. And then and then when the caterpillar is beginning to become the butterfly, it has to struggle to get out of the cocoon. If you try to help it out, it will die, because part of the struggle is part of the process that God created. And then I came across this quote by Maya Angelou, who's not a Christian, but and it was, sorry, I have to read it because I'll misquote it. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the challenges it has gone through to achieve such beauty. And so I just think that kind of fits for us, that's how God designed it. And I'm sure one of you has 1 Peter, 1:7 about the struggle and how that brings about proven character and all that. So, yeah, that's kind of what it is. But I have one other, and this is learning to ride a bike. I'm helping my little grandchildren. I have helped them. My husband and I learn to ride their bikes. And there's fear involved. There's pain involved. But if they quit, they'll never master that wonderful feeling of riding the bike. And so it's kind of the same thing in our Christian journey. Some of us let fear stop us from growing.
Amen.
So anyway, those are my analogies.
What are your thoughts, Colleen, on why growth is sometimes painful? And why is it worth the pain?
Well, it is worth the pain. It usually takes pain. If you're going to do anything that's worth doing, there's going to be pain. And a lot of times with the things that we're doing as Christians, we're fighting against, our natural tendencies. Just about everything Jesus taught us to do, I think, pretty much goes against your nature.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think that he doesn't tell us eat your favorite pizza.
Right.
We'll do that. Yeah. So that's painful. It's something we don't like, and your brain is always trying to keep you even and stable and happy. So when you have to work, you don't feel happy, or if you fail, somebody says you did it wrong or whatever, that doesn't feel good, and then we want to run away from it. So we have to. It usually takes either self-discipline, where you pile the work or the pain on yourself, or something comes along and clobbers you, and you can't help it. But either way, it's work to overcome this thing, or grow your spiritual muscles. I want to quote Pat Summitt, who was the legendary coach of the Tennessee women's basketball team, winners of many national championships. Okay. I love to quote her. She said, "The harder you work, the harder it is to give up."
Oh,
So if you're just lounging around in the church, in the kingdom, when something comes up, it won't be that difficult for you to kind of just say, okay. But if you've been working really hard, it's going to be hard to give up.
Yeah, because you're invested. Definitely.
Yes. Yeah,
definitely. And you passed over an idea there, Colleen, also that I wanted to highlight. And that is, sometimes pain comes at you because you have chosen to do something hard, and sometimes something happens out of left field you weren't expecting, but it helps you grow too. Is that if you're somebody that, and I remember being at this stage in my early 20s, life has been pretty easy. What is all this pain thing everybody keeps talking about? If you're in that situation, do go reach for something that will challenge you, and it will bring elements of pain to your life in terms of the discipline that you're describing. But like the butterfly that Robin described, what if you peel that cocoon, Robin? What happens? Let me just help you. No, it's you get that strength through the struggle, just like that butterfly will not survive if it doesn't go against that struggle. And so, yes, pain and growth are best friends. Anything to add to this, Jill?
Y'all are covering it really well. Some really wonderful ideas. I was thinking that, okay, senior moment. I'm sorry. A lot of the time we cause our own pain because we are resisting what we know would be the right thing to do because we're comfortable. Mm-hmm. And when it finally comes to the point when you have to change, it's all the more difficult.
Yes.
Right, because change will not happen unless you get uncomfortable with the way things are. That's part of learning theory, that you've got to let go of what you think you know so you can grow.
Totally.
Yes.
So have you guys heard of this phrase that people use, and they talk about autopilot and all of that? So I guess on a boat, this is an introduction to the next little section that we're going to talk about here. So autopilot is this feature on a boat. If you want to go east, you can push a button that takes you east. Now, if you decide, no, I actually need to go west, you can force it when it's an autopilot. You can turn west, but to hold it west, your muscles are going to start shaking because your autopilot wants to go east. because you set it to ease. So somebody has made an analogy that really our willpower, if we can get into habits, that's like a habit is like autopilot. You're going straight that direction, you know? And so we really want to make it easier to go a certain direction, because if we just use willpower, then that's going to wear you out. But if something doesn't take a lot of self-control because it's in autopilot, then that frees you up to use your self-control and your willpower for a new direction that also will make you strong. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Okay. I love that analogy. And that is exactly how it is.
Yeah.
You've got, it feels good to do things a certain way. Mm-hmm. And when you start even trying to change that a little bit, your brain rebels.
Yeah.
So you have to have little tricks. We can talk about those later. I've got some little tricks.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm looking for tricks, some little tricks like that tonight. Really specific examples of like how we can do these things. So one of the things we want to talk about is routines. What old routines have you let go of, and what new habits have you developed over time that have most enhanced your spiritual growth? So who wants to start off this one? Anybody have some ideas right off the bat here?
My little dog is wanting to play all of a sudden, so I'm gonna go put him out. Please.
All right, I get that. Colleen, would you then?
Yes, Elbert Hubbard wrote, probably 100 years ago, self-discipline is I'm paraphrasing. Self-discipline is the ability to do what you should do, when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. So I focus on the whether you feel like. That's the one that gets me, whether I feel like it or not.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I don't know exactly what I should do, and maybe sometimes the timing is off. That can happen, but I would say that majority of the time, my problem is I don't feel like it. So one thing that you can do is just this is maybe not one specific case, but in general, what I have done is I have learned time management techniques. There's a book by Brian Tracy called Time Management Made Simple. It's an audio book. You can get it online or whatever. You can buy it online. It's a great book. And my kids and their husbands listen to it over and over. We all do. And it's so full of ideas. You will find some ideas that will change your life. That book changed my life in middle age. So that's one. So a lot of little tricks that just make it easier for you to change the way you're doing things. Don't try to do it by brute force. That's not going to work. One time we were in a class teaching third graders, and I said, okay, so one thing you can do remember to do your memory verse, memorize your memory verse, you can write, or other things, you can write it on a sticky note and put it, I was telling the kids this, put it on your mirror, beside your bed or someplace, reminding you to do your memory verse or do your homework sheet or whatever. And this little boy said, well, isn't that letting the note do the work? And I said, yes. And the other teacher said, yeah, when you grow up, life gets really complicated.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to write down the stuff that's important to make sure you do it.
Totally. And yes, what a great skill for a child to learn early on, because lists, I don't know if you guys are hooked on your list. I've gone to an electronic list, Google Notes, because that way I can be like, call Colleen, you can, and so it's got this list, and I've divided it into things I need to decide, things I need to learn, OWL podcast ideas, Nomad podcast ideas, written projects, etc. So yes, let the sticky note do the job. Let the to-do list track that. Now you're in autopilot, so you can focus on some other things and keep track of what you need to keep track of. So we're talking about routines that we've let go of and new habits that have really helped us with enhance our spiritual growth in life. Jill, would you like to add something here?
I was kind of thinking more like mindsets.
Oh, I like that.
like letting things make me angry. And I was looking real quick for Colossians 3:8, to put all these things out of your life, to put away anger. But I really have to focus on thinking about, how am I reacting to this? Kind of almost like Colleen, we're thinking about your feelings, and I don't feel like doing something. Well, my tendency was to let something make me angry, or to blame other people or other situations when there was something I knew I was supposed to be doing differently, but I wasn't. But I think just to make myself pay attention to why I'm reacting those ways. And maybe a sticky note would help me. I don't know. I'm one of those that writes things down and then lose the list. So
maybe observe somebody else being angry, and that's so embarrassing. If, you don't want to do that, and that might help you be more mindful or analytical.
And I've had someone helpfully tell me, be careful, because your face is reflecting all of these things you're thinking. But I needed my friend to tell me that.
Yeah.
So I would, think more about.
Uh-huh.
But it all happens between the ears here.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've old routines, I think probably the biggest thing for me is kind of noticing, and you've all talked about noticing so far, noticing what steals my time, and not unnecessarily lingering around that thing. So, I mean, when I was growing up, I had a television lineup. It'd be like, here's my shows, here's what comes on, here's the game show that comes on when I get home from school. And I mean, I just had, and so I think as I've matured, it's felt very good to have no media addictions. TV series. I'm not a big news watcher. I'll catch the headlines to try to, know what's going on. But other than that, I really love instead adding listening to audiobooks or informative podcasts that will help me grow while I'm doing my exercise, taking long walks, or doing housework, or even showering and getting ready for the day, and that kind of thing, to be listening to things that I know will help me grow, kind of like multitask kind of thing. So that has been super helpful for me. Robin, what are your thoughts on this?
Mine is similar to yours. The old routine was to fill my mind with lots of noise, distractions, music. I mean, music is great, don't get me wrong, but just so I just learned how to shut out the noise. I do not, I can only clean my house when I listen to Motown, but besides that, because that gets me motivated, but I just try to shut out the noise. And I can't even tell you how this happened, but I started it. Like Jill was talking about, it's in here. And for me, thoughts, I developed a habit of turning thoughts into prayers.
Oh.
I tell I'm doing a class right now with a couple of teenage girls just in my home. And we're talking about prayer and why prayer is challenging and difficult, and you can get off track. And, I used to have to write my prayers down. But just anywhere you go, turning those thoughts into prayers. And I used to take my 3 children, fortunately or unfortunately, were all students at the school that I taught at. And so I would drive to school with them, or they would drive with me, and we would pray on the way to school.
Oh, I love that.
And just kind of making every part of your day, if it's on your mind, take it to God. There is nothing too small to take to God. And just that, I don't know, just don't worry about it, pray about it. It sounds like, well, how do you do that? But you just carry God with you in every conversation, in every thought. And then one other routine that really helped me, and this is going to sound strange, but it helped me to have a dedicated place in my house, which was where I would go and meet God.
Oh.
I had a place, and I would go there always. And I'm an early riser by nature, and it didn't matter what, but the kids knew at a certain time, mom's in her place. Don't bother mom unless it's an emergency.
Yeah.
And that has just always helped me. It's just felt like my special place. And I've had my Bible there and always my cup of coffee. And sometimes I'm reading, and sometimes I'm just meditating. And by meditating, I mean just thinking about God or thinking about a passage or a scripture. Anyway, so that having a place has helped me.
Yes.
I like that.
What you're saying is reminding me of Ephesians 4:22, where it's talking about laying aside the old self and being renewed in the spirit of your mind. And we each need that time of day where we're renewed in the spirit of our mind. It goes on to say, and put on the new self, which is in the likeness of God, has been created in righteousness and holiness in the truth. So I noticed too, Robin, that I think my spiritual growth has been rooted in, first of all, learning, then thinking, and thirdly, sharing. And I think that overall, at the age of 62, that overall has what I think has been the biggest blessing to my spiritual growth. So in terms of learning, I have gone electronic Bible study, and I do it now several hours every day, but that's the that's the glorious thing about being in your 60s, that you know, not saying that everybody has time for this, but I love copying and pasting an entire book of the Bible into my own Word document. I have a certain highlighting system that I won't go into. If you've been watching Older Women Likewise, that's already out there. And then I go through, and in brackets, I put cross references. I put if there's a translation, I use New American Standard 1995. But if there's a translation that really clarifies, a cross references, commentaries, if there's something really confusing, and I read through commentaries off of Bible Hub. So basically, I guess you could say my Bible study is writing my own devotional commentary type thing. It has been, I can't even tell you. I'm in love. I am in love with this method of Bible study. It's not for everyone. But then, Isla, would you bring up the slide I wanted to share in terms of thinking? Like you said, Robin, lots of like silence to process everything that's coming at me. Lots of silence to keep my head straight. And while I'm in my journaling mode here, this is just a fraction of my daily writing prompts, believe it or not. It looks like it would take forever. It doesn't. There's other writing prompts that are more on a personal level below these ones. But every day I think about, okay, what was my scripture reading today? I have a reason to rejoice every day. I write down my praise. Now, a lot of times that praise comes out of the Bible reading, but it could have something to do with something going on in my life. It feels so good, sisters, every day to put in writing a confession. So this is something that I can see in myself that I could do better at. It's an evaluation. It's the one area that I need intercession from God. Like, here's my weakness today. Intercession is like, hey, stop thinking all about yourself. Who are you most aware of right now in this space and time that you want to give an intercessory prayer for? Who are you most concerned about? I lay one casted care down. What's weighing my heart down in a different way than that confession? This is kind of more of maybe an outside concern that has crossed my path. I thank God for something specifically. Who have I helped today? So within the last 24 hours, like this is basically a reminder of myself to not, like, it's not all about you, Cindy Dunnigan. Who have you helped? Don't get so wrapped in just you and God and your Bible study that you retreat, right? And so then usually there's a mystery that has surfaced over the last 24 hours. So I write down my question. I'm going to remember to try to find the answer to my question. It could be something very physical, and it could be any question. Did I hear a quote that was amazing within the last 24 hours? Something someone said, every day. And if you're looking for it, you notice it. What was my best conversation? What did I learn? this is going to be something more deep compared to the next one's practical discovery, like a little thing that's just going to make life easier. Did I have a bright idea? And what was my brightest moment? And the reason why I write down my brightest moment is because it teaches my brain optimism, that I'm looking for my brightest moment. I've got that one that happened mid-afternoon, but I'm waiting to see if there's a better one that shows up, later on in the day. So this is something that has deeply, deeply helped me when I'm in my thinking mode. And then I let that, I'm done with that. And then all of that Bible study and all of the processing and all of the learning, that I think over decades kind of prepares you in whatever way you do it. That's just how I do it. But then you're ready to share, like, what have you learned? Because you're brimming with these ideas, and you see a broken world, and you remember that part in the scriptures that solves this problem and prevents that problem. And so now that's how you end up where you have got quite a bit to offer the world out there, because what you have now is God's solutions.
Hey, Cindy, could you pull that up again? I was trying to get a screenshot of it, and she moved
Sure.
it, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Irene. You can put that up again.
I got my screenshot. I'm sure.
You know what? And for those, because we get a lot of ladies, most of our listeners are on podcasts. So, and there's probably about 6 or 7 more after that. But oh, you guys, this has meant so much to just synthesize. Especially, I started about 5 years ago as I started my travels, as a way of doing a travel journal, but it's so indispensable to me for my mental health, for my clarity of mind.
Cindy,
so useful.
This is great. This is absolutely great. I'm thinking of, as older women, we are to teach the younger women.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a younger woman, with house full of kids and stuff, I would not have had time for that.
Absolutely.
But this is such a great growth tool. I think perhaps it could be encouraged that as younger women are talking to one another, they can say, what did I learn today? Or they can focus on 1 or 2 of these.
Absolutely.
But there needs to be, I have often heard, I just have not a heavy heart. I have a heart that is always wanting to just embrace the younger women in my congregation.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are so blessed, older ladies. We are so blessed to be older. Wrinkles, gray hair, and achy bones and all. Because we have time. We have time for this,
mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking at this thinking, how can we take this and help younger women develop into this routine? Because it is a great growth tool. But
I think it's just self-discipline. You just have to tell yourself that's one of the things you do. That's what you're going to do. And nobody can do it but you. I knew a woman she had several little kids, tiny kids. And she said one day, she said her husband would come home and say, well, what did you do today? And she'd go, I don't remember. I don't know. So she said, I am going to write it all down. I thought, what a great idea. And then, later when they're 25 years old and they say that you never did fill in the blank, you can go back and say, June 25th, 1999, I did.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, Robin, one thing that also helps is voice to text, because I don't sit there and plug through and just, so a lot of times it's going to be voice to text. And I have encouraged the younger women, like, which ones, especially the more spiritual ones in nature, which customize it. Always customize any kind of idea like this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I think it's really good. And I sometimes I've told the young moms in my circle, there are some times when the twins, my daughter had twins, she had two kids and then twins, and then her husband was deployed for 7 months. And let me tell you, that was tough for her. And, in those moments, don't beat yourself up for not having this, whatever, but just find some snippet in your day. And rest is a good thing to do too. When the babies are sleeping, rest is probably a really good thing for you to do. But there has to be this balance between how you're feeding your soul, because just showing up at church doesn't cut it.
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry for anybody that's out there, if they think that getting fed from the preacher, the preacher, the Bible school teacher, whatever, and that's what you're going to be a very weak. So I don't know. I just would love to take that and help the young mom. And Colleen is right. It is all about discipline. But honestly, when those kids are little, and my daughter-in-law has 3 boys that are wonderful, but they are about as high energy as you can get. So it's just find what works for you, but find something that works. Here's an idea. It works. So
yes, and
it might be her refuge. It might be her refuge from all the chaos.
Yeah. So I just think it's great, and we just need to encourage the younger moms to find what they can't ignore the spiritual part, or that will make them weak. So, and not able to deal with all of the challenges that young moms have. And personally, Colleen, Jill, Cindy, would you like to be parenting today?
No, I really, it's a lot of pressure, which is one reason why you need to be feeding that spiritual part of you. So maybe this is a list, Robin, too. You're nursing your baby and you're looking at this list and you're praying through it to combine some of the answers that we've shared tonight.
Exactly.
And you ask God your question and you tell him, right? And so you're just looking at the list while you're rocking baby and you're putting it into prayer. So there's some way that you can use this. Do not get busy with busy work where now your children are annoyance to you because you can't get your list done. So
right, exactly.
It's not about that. It's about nurturing your soul, because you do have a lot on you.
What are you doing every day to nurture your soul? That's the bottom line.
Yes.
So how bright she is about you can't rely on getting all of that in services at church, especially if you're balancing these children on your knee. Your biggest job then is to be a role model for your children and showing your priorities in life. But
yes, I mean, when you're in your 60s, it's like what you're hearing at church can end up being about 10% of your spiritual food. Like if you are at home just savoring the bread, the living water, there's nothing like it. And any kind of thing that the world throws at you to try for recreation, there's nothing that recreates you than the Creator's spoken word, but it is an acquired taste. Taste and see that the Lord is good. You don't realize it, and Satan wants all these other just shallow diversions to be the thing that renews you. Once you have, and it takes a while, but when you acquire a taste for the Word of God as your recreation, as your recreation, boy, you will settle for nothing less once that's a part of your diet spiritually. We were going to talk a little bit, ladies, we're talking about growth. So we're talking about, like, has there been times where you had to reject the advice of the culture or tradition, or even maybe your own reason and emotions in favor of God's counsel throughout your growth process? My thoughts on this, when I was a teenager, remember the culture was like, hey, have fun at any price, compared to God, who says in Ecclesiastes 11:9, be happy, young man, while you're young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all of these things, God will bring you to judgment. And so as you are enjoying the blessings that are only going to be in your life as a teenager, realize you are accountable to God. And boy, if you have that mindset that early in life, that you're always going to give an answer to God for everything that you think and you say and you do, that actually is going to increase your enjoyment of life, that realization, because you're not going to have some of these ugly consequences that can set a trajectory in your early life toward some really heavy consequences. So that was one I'll throw out there as I was growing up. But Jill, did you have some things that you wanted to add here on listening to God rather than the world?
I was thinking about what you were talking about, those early years.
Yes.
Those years when you've been so influenced by the world and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Think about our dating culture in America. And now, when I was young, it was bad. Now there are no boundaries. It's very difficult. The feminism movement.
Yes.
But I've got to go into God's word and find out what that should look like.
Yes.
What does a strong woman look like?
Yes.
What
He
does
wants us to be strong
look like? In
Yes.
God, I want to look good in God's eyes.
Yes. Yes. That's what matters. What are your thoughts, Colleen?
You said recall a time when you had to reject the advice of culture. Well, I would say pretty much every day of my life, and in
Okay.
most relationships with people, like it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And it's
like,
a growth thing.
You invite people to church. The guy that changes your oil, and the pest control guy, and the lady that delivers the package. It's usually awkward. They're usually nice, but some people get irked by that.
Yeah.
That's one where I just have to say, that's my job, and I will
Colleen.
do it. But you were talking about exposing ourselves to genuine wisdom. Here's a practical tip. When I first became a Christian, there was a guy that studied with me for about 3 years on a weekly basis. That was so good. And I don't think I've ever known anybody that had that.
Yeah.
But it was just the perfect thing. And I see that I learned so much, and it was one-on-one. I could ask him anything. I had not studied the Bible. And you're not going to ask that in a class. Read something and it's like, well, is this wrong? Do I have to stop doing this? And, you're not going to embarrass yourself. And so he was a really good teacher. He let me read it for myself. And he helped me to see different places where the thing was mentioned. And it just went so well. So if you can find someone like that, it's not easy to find somebody. And you want somebody that's going to be in there for the long term, not just we'll study one time, or we'll study John for 6 weeks. No, it's got to be somebody that wants something that's ongoing and has a heart to teach.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful example. What are your thoughts, Robin?
Well, I was like Colleen. I was like, every day on this one. But I think when I first became a Christian, we were a part of a very teeny tiny congregation, and I would have loved to have an older woman take me under her wing. And one lady did. When I say older, she was really only not even 10 years older than me, but she just taught me so much. So I would just say to anybody, find somebody. That person may not be able to walk with you for 3 years, but find somebody. And what I always tell the gals that I mentor is, if somebody has criticized you or suggested, something, and you feel a little ruffled, stop and look at who they are. And if their life is worthy of emulation, and you like how they're doing life with their kids, their husband, or they're using their gifts and talents for God, then listen very carefully to what they're telling you. If it's somebody that you just think, no, then thank them, but don't let it just eat you up. So I just would say, younger women, look for somebody. Mr. Rogers used to say, look for the helpers.
Oh, look for the helpers.
In every congregation, there's somebody, and they may not be a 60-year-old. They may be just 10 years older than you, but observe who they are, how they live their life for Christ in the kingdom, and ask them the questions.
Yeah.
But older women, we need to be looking out for the younger women. And sometimes it's just coming alongside them and say, hey, can I hold your baby today?
Oh.
That may be the last thing I want to do. But not about me, about them.
Yeah.
Would you, do you have any time to go get coffee or Coke or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Invest in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I ask God to direct you to whom might need that, because that's an admonition for us.
Absolutely.
And this teaches them, obviously, but in our own local congregations, there are people who may not ask. They may be intimidated. They may think, oh, she's got all her ducks in a row and then some. I'm not going to go tell her my stuff, So I just think we have to make ourselves available.
Yeah.
Be very observant and look for who we can help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to reach out and say, you know what, if you'd like to get together, I find you interesting for this reason, and I'd love to share some thoughts with you, or if you have any questions, like things that you've been curious about, or tell me about things you've been learning or what your own ideas are, and that can kind of open up. If you go at a maybe begin a relationship as equals, and then it kind of finds its spot as to whether it ends up being a mentoring thing, or a lot of times it's mutually beneficial, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, before we close, ladies, I just wanted to get a few other ideas, if you had any, about what our sisters can do to improve their prayer life or their Bible study time. Anything you wanted to add that has not been? We touched a little bit on this earlier. Jill, did you want to share anything there that you had on that?
Yeah, I've been having a little trouble finding the time to sit down and read the scriptures, and sometimes I have some trouble with my eyes. But I've started using my iPad. If I wake up early in the morning, I don't want to disturb my husband. I just plug in my little headphones and put the scriptures on and the speaker feature on there, and just let it read to me. And it's really turned out to be a really nice way to start my day.
Love that. Love that. Colleen, what are your thoughts?
I am developing the habit of praying before I get out of bed.
I love it.
And starting my prayers with you, so that I will develop the mind to praise God. So I say, you are my light and my salvation. You are awesome, rather than I think this or this. And it's not that any of that other ways are wrong, but it's I need to develop the ability to praise God more. So start it with you. I have a little habit of praying before I log on, or when I log on to my computer several times a day. So that makes me communicate with God when I'm busy working. And memorizing, pick something, and even a whole chapter. Go for a whole chapter, and then, gradually do it, and then post it on your refrigerator, and that'll keep you going on it. And then once you've memorized it, recite it when you're exercising. That'll tell you whether you got good cardio. If you can talk and if you can recite scripture and dribble a basketball down the court, that's pretty good.
Love it. Love it. What would you add to this, Robin?
I don't have the coordination to dribble a basketball down. For me, it's reading and rereading and rereading and rereading a passage. Like if I really want something to sink in, I've done the thing on the refrigerator, and like I said, we're all different. And so what works for one person may or may not work for another, but what works for me is just, and it may sound mundane, but just reading something over and over and over. In fact, every year I made the commitment to reread the Gospels. So every year I read the Gospels, and I have more of the Gospels in my heart memorized.
Yes.
I do other things because every year now for the past 15 years, I've been rereading the Gospels as part of my reading plan. But I think that's helpful. And also, when I really want to commit something, whether it's memorizing or starting a new study or doing whatever, I learned a valuable lesson from a former administrator at the school I was teaching at.
Mm-hmm.
He was working on his doctorate, and he came to several of us and he said, okay, randomly throughout the day, I want you to ask me, how is your dissertation going?
Oh.
And so, in other words, it was accountability.
Yes.
So I think partnering up, like
Yes.
saying to somebody, okay, I want to try to memorize this long passage. I don't know if you want to choose one too, and let's partner up and ask each other, how's it going? How's your study going? Or how's this going? Because there's just such power in being accountable to one another.
Yes.
And I've needed that in my life, someone to hold me accountable to these ideas. My brain is an idea brain, and so if it's going to come to fruition, I have to verbalize it to somebody, and then they can ask me, how's that going? Or, whatever. So that's worked for me.
Cool. I guess I will add to all your fantastic thoughts, ladies. I will add, if you've never read the Bible cover to cover, take a year, and you maybe do need to do the boxes. I mean, I think that's what the first thing I did was just cover to cover, try to do it in a year. And the audio Bible, if you get into the section where we're building the tabernacle and stuff, pull out the audio Bible, and then get back to the page, but try to read the Bible through. And then I love the idea of there's something called the Daily Bible, and it's in chronological order. And it has dates on it. So that could be read through in a year. But it's in the order of, generally speaking, of what happened first and the next and the next, because a lot of the Psalms are in between those history books. And so it gives you, and the prophets as well. So you get a better idea of when that prophet, what was happening in history when that prophet spoke. What did David write about? Psalms 51, it's like reading his diary when he repents of his sin with Bathsheba. And so the chronological Bible, the Daily Bible, can also be very, very much an asset to your getting a kind of a better picture of the feel of the flow of the scriptures. Mm-hmm. And I have all kinds of other ideas, but we are out of time. And Jill has our final.
Just real quick, one of my friends bought a Bible that had no chapter or verse markings in it, so it reads like prose. She said it's wonderful. She just wants to sit there and just reads and reads, and doesn't feel like stopping. So I ordered it online somewhere. But
cool.
You made me think of it when you were talking about the other.
Yes. And our buddy Dana Burke has added, we read the Bible through every year with our children just before bedtime for most of their lives. Wow. Dana, I love that idea. Yeah, why not make it a part of a beautiful end of the day routine with your family? Thank Kevin you said that. And thank Kevin for my panelists tonight, who always have so many great practical ideas to share, to draw hearts closer to God, and helping their sisters in Christ do what they can to grow closer to the Lord. So thank you, everyone who participated in this, and to our viewers as well for watching tonight. And we will see you next time on Older Women Likewise. Good night.
Good night.
See ya.